to the Generational Awakening YouTube channel. Our aim is to encourage, equip, and empower Christian leaders and parents to effectively nurture the next generation, become resilient, lifelong disciples of Jesus. Today, we welcome our special guest, Jody Collinge. Jody is a medical missionary working with Community Health Evangelism ministries, also known as CHE, and Children's CHE with the Global CHE Network. Community Health Evangelism can be thought of as Christ-centered community development. They work with ministries around the world with the goal of seeing individuals and communities transformed by Christ and his love. The Lord led Jody into medicine through an experience that she'll be sharing with us in a few moments. After she finished her pediatrics training, he led her into missions. Jody lives in Chihuahua in Mexico, but has worked in many countries. Welcome, Jody. Thank you for joining us today to share with us some of the wonderful work God is doing through CHE around the world.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you today. And I'd like to share with you not so much about myself, but what about the Lord is doing.
But can you begin by telling us how the Lord led you into missions?
So let me share a picture. As Harry mentioned, the ministry is called Community Health Evangelism. And thank God that through Community Health Evangelism, or CHE, we are seeing Christ transforming the lives of many people, of children, of families, and communities around the world. I began life as a 3-pound, premature baby. But even at that point, God was at work in my life. He spared me. He led me on until when I was 16 and a new Christian, I developed a brain tumor, a craniopharyngioma that was the size of a baseball. But the Lord used even that experience for his good. Although up until that time, I had not had any desire to be a doctor, God used the experience of the brain tumor, the surgery, the radiation as a way to turn my life around and lead me into medicine, not as a way to earn money, but as a way to serve him. Then later on, to my surprise, after I finished my training in pediatrics, he led me into missions. So I went from my training and my pediatrics practice in New York to working in Mexico, first in Reynosa on the border, and now in Zihuatanejo, just north of Acapulco, and then through the CHE ministries, reaching out to many areas around the globe.
Well, what exactly is community health evangelism?
When I first arrived in Reynosa on the border, we had no strategy for our mercy ministries. But then the Lord had introduced me to CHE, or Community Health Evangelism, which is Christ-centered community development. Our goal is to develop people, not just to do things for them, but to give them new strengths, new abilities, and more than anything, to help them to know Christ and have him guide their lives. So we're working around the world. It's what we would call a holistic or integral ministry, combining the physical and the spiritual. We work in communities and are led by communities, and we've seen the Lord change many families and communities through this. So this is just an example of some of the areas that we're working in. We're working in evangelism and discipleship with the families, with health issues, with education, with agriculture, with economic development. But mostly we want to see Christ transform lives.
Why are you prioritizing work with children?
Children's CHE is an area that I'm working with. It stands for Community Health Evangelism with children or through children. And we're seeing the Lord work through CHE and children's CHE to change the lives of the children. Many children are coming to know Christ and grow in Him. Their health has been tremendously improved by teaching simple things like hygiene. We can reduce the amount of diarrhea in a community and the number of kids hospitalized with diarrhea and dehydration. We're seeing the Lord work through CHE and children's CHE to help whole families come to know Christ. We're seeing communities transformed. Our goal is that the people who learn will not only learn these new skills, but will share them with others. They'll make other people ambassadors for Christ. They'll teach others what they've learned of the new health skills and the new practical skills. And we've seen the Lord work amazingly through this to plant and build up churches and to expand His kingdom. Here are some examples of CHE. One of the places that we've worked is in a Maasai village, and the Maasai people are in Kenya, southern Kenya and Tanzania. They have an area where they have had severe problems with health issues, with diarrhea, with dehydration, with social issues like early pregnancies and female genital mutilation. And we've seen the Lord bring a transformation through that. I'll show you later on some slides, but the kids have learned simple skills like tippy taps and building dish drying racks that have improved their hygiene and reduced their illness. And the young women have been transformed as well, so that we no longer see so much female genital mutilation or early marriages of children. In Kenya as well, they went through a severe drought, and they've been losing trees and are concerned about the environment. So the women have learned to plant fruit trees, not only as a way to bring reforestation, but also as a way to bring food to their families. We also worked with refugees from South Sudan, and they came to Uganda with tremendous physical needs and in need of lots of health teaching and practical teaching and teaching on small businesses, but also with a tremendous hunger for Christ. We saw there were hundreds of people who came to Christ. There were more than 50 churches that were planted over a short time, and they were eager to learn community health evangelism and share it with their neighbors and the other villages in Uganda. Here you can see some of our CHE training, and I don't know if you can guess from that what we're trying to teach. We're trying to show that if you do everything for everybody, like carry them on your back, you'll shortly become tired and worn out. But if we can teach you the same skills, in this case, how to cross a river, then it's more sustainable and it'll continue for a long time. We're not trying to fix their problems. We're trying to come and build their skills and build them up so that they'll be able to resolve their own needs and their own issues in their communities. It's been a joy to work with children. In many parts of the world, children are looked down upon as not important or second-rate status. But we find that there are very many advantages of working with kids. One is that they're eager to learn. They come running when we enter a new community. Although their parents might be too busy, their parents may not be too interested, all we need to do is to show up on a basketball court with a ball and a group of kids will surround us pretty quickly. They also are more quick to learn than adults are and have less fears about putting things in practice. However, there is one challenge of working with children. We play a balloon game to show how children are like balloons. We ask the adults to try to keep the balloons in the air for 2 minutes, and they find it's nearly impossible. And likewise, working with children takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of, children have a shorter attention span. And so we need to move quickly with them and not linger too long on a topic. And we also teach more through games and stories and activities. So it's been a joy to work with kids throughout the world. We start sometimes in a community with a school screening and discover the health needs of the kids. And then we pose the question to their parents and we say, what would you like to do to improve the health of your children? And so that very often leads to more families getting involved.
Well, how is the Lord working through children and children's Che?
Here are some examples. We are getting more and more invitations to work in schools. In schools, very often we can't teach the Bible directly, but we can teach about moral values and we can teach health lessons, and schools have done community projects like a community garden. That is a way to transform the means of learning in a school from a rote learning to active participation by the kids. We often teach basic health skills like toothbrushing and washing hands. Here, this is that Maasai community in Kenya. The children made dish drying racks for their parents so that after they had washed the dishes, they don't have to be put into the dirt to be contaminated again and covered with germs. I'm not sure you know what a tippy tap is. This is an example of a tippy tap. We have a couple of problems. In many areas, people have to carry water by hand, so it's heavy and scarce in the communities. And if the water is over by the kitchen and the latrine is over in another direction, the kids aren't likely to wash their hands. So with a tippy tap or a simple jug of water, they can learn to wash their hands using only a small quantity of water, and they stay healthier and we don't have as much of a struggle with carrying the water as well. Here's other examples of children's Che. One of the things that we've seen is that very often children are a strong link to their parents and their families. The children, we don't have to tell them to go out and teach other people, but if they're excited about a story or if they're excited about something new they've learned, they naturally share it with their families and with other people. And so therefore, what we've been sharing with the kids spreads to the adults in the community as well. The kids have also been very effective in sharing their faith, both with other children and with their families. And through Che and Children's Che, we've seen very many churches planted. In Zihuatanejo, for example, our young pastor started with soccer teams, with youth. And at first, the youth, they lost their first game 17-0. But they had such a good time that the kids on the other team were attracted and wanted to join them. And eventually that led to discussions in their home about Christ and Bible study with the youth. And then the youth became the church planters in a new community. And their parents, who knew nothing about Christ, saw the changes in their kids and wanted to come and see what the change was. So now entire families have been led to Christ and are taking part in that church. We can sometimes meet only with kids, or as you see here, with children and with families. Very often they work together, as in that project of planting the fruit trees. Much of the time, or many people either don't know how to read or don't like to read. So a lot of our teaching is done through stories and through picture pages, as this one you see will show a family this picture and ask them, what do you see? How is the water being contaminated in this picture? Another area where the kids are really warriors in a lot of ways is that they're strong prayer warriors for Christ. And they remember week after week to be praying. And they've been very faithful in serving him.
It's wonderful to see, Jody, how children are actively involved in helping their parents and their village. And as they grow in knowing, loving God and learning to put him first, they in turn will become parents able to raise their children to love God, serve their community. They use the skills they've learned and as they live out the gospel and make disciples.
That's right. We want the kids to be actively serving Christ now, and also are preparing them to be leaders for him in the future.
How can we be involved in what Che is doing?
There are several ways you can be involved. One is, please be praying for this ministry, that Christ will work through it to reach many families in their communities. I'd also like to share with you now a short video that shows how you can help bring Christ's light to the darkness.
I have a deep desire in me, and you likely have one in you, to make a difference in life, to make some small part of the world better, because I've been here. Jesus made an astounding statement about us, his followers. He said to us, "You are the light of the world." That means that when we let our light shine, we truly can make a difference. That's an extraordinary, incredible opportunity. You've likely heard it said that with great opportunity comes great responsibility. And that's true. We as his church are God's transforming agent. And we are responsible to let our light shine in the darkness, because shining lights do change the world. My book, Beyond Poverty, is a call to Christians to ask the question, how can we have the greatest impact among the poor? How can we really make a difference? I draw from experience of ministries around the world, that have seen communities lifted out of cycles of poverty and disease, and then seen that success multiply from one community to another. The gospel is good news to the poor. Jesus sees their struggle and feels their pain. He calls us to respond. This book is written to help us respond in ways that truly change life for the poor forever. And in the process, I believe we will be changed as we see in the eyes of the poor the face of our Savior.
Here are some resources that you have available. Many of these are available on the Global Chain Network website. And we do ask, in order to have access to all of these resources, that you take CHE training first. That helps you understand the principles, the biblical principles behind our community health evangelism ministry, and allows you to use it more effectively. But we have more than 15,000 lessons. We put them out online and also through a CHE USB. We're working on developing a CHE app, or it's also known as CHAP, to make these available. And we put out PDF training manuals like you can see here. Our goal is to make them accessible to everybody. So whatever level of technology they have, they can have access to the materials. And we encourage them, we each encourage the local ministries to both translate them into their local languages, to add new lessons, and to modify our lessons so that they fit the context of where they're working. We also are developing an online training center.
What about other languages, Jody? How many languages do you currently have resources in?
People often ask me, how many lessons do you have? And I have to say, I don't know. They're too numerous to count. It's the same way with languages. We're trying to develop a library of the different languages around the world, but each of our chain ministries is owned by their local program. And so we don't have a centralized hub so much. So I think they're available in more than 15 languages, but I can't give you an exact count on that one.
As we conclude, Jody, what final recommendation do you have for viewers?
I would say be encouraged to work with and through your children. You will be surprised at how they can be effective ambassadors for Christ. Don't just teach them Bible stories, but teach them also to apply those stories to their own lives, to share what they have learned with other people. And thank you for your prayers for our Community Health Evangelism ministries. Pray that we can continue to multiply the ministries, that we can continue to share Christ. Pray for more individuals and families and communities to be transformed by Christ.
Parents and children's workers can also watch some of this interview with you and discover what God is doing through CHE, impact communities with his love. You can also pray for the ministry and that many more families and communities will have their lives transformed.
And we would be glad to have you get involved with CHE, and if there's any way that I can help you, just please let me know. And thank God for all that he's doing.
If you have questions for Jody, you can contact her through the email address on the screen below this video at info@chenetwork.org. Thanks, Jody, for being with us and for all that you and the CHE partners are doing to help transform communities around the world. If our viewers, you found value in what we have shared today, I invite you to like this video and to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to be informed of each new video released. Let us know in the comments below what you have found most helpful or encouraging and any questions you may have for Jody or for myself. Then share the link with friends and churches who would also be helped and inspired. Together, let's impact many more lives for good across all the generations. So thank you again for joining us today. Be blessed, and let's keep multiplying the blessing to others. Bye for now.